in Chinese cities, many of your customers, actually middle class, upper middle class here in this country, they want fresh food from farm to their dinner table. So how do you see that is changing the consuming habits? Give us some of the examples that you are very familiar with.
Actually, about 10 years ago, when I introduced this kind of model, CS model, to consumers, they are not
CS model meaning?
Community supported agriculture. It means directly link consumers with farmers. And when I talk about this model, people will asking what does that mean? What does organic food mean? But
more than 10 years ago that was.
Yeah, that's 10 years ago. But now, if you talk about organic food, healthy food and this kind of model directly deliver organic food from the farm to table is kind of very familiar in Beijing.
And they agree to pay much more than what they would get at the supermarket.
Yeah, I think they are kind of value driven. Some of the consumers, they worry about food safety, they want healthy food. But some of the consumers, they're really value driven because they care about the environment. So they want to pay more to pay for the environment cost to reduce chemical residue to the soil on the food.
This is an interesting case study. Before I go to Professor Liu to analyze about that, let me ask you even further. How have you seen the number of your customers changing over the years? Let's just say from 10 years ago to now.
10 years ago, the first year we only got 50 members, and now we have about 1,000 families.
Amazing. But of course, that's been very tough 10 years for you to develop that idea here in China. Professor Liu, that is of course what Mr. Shi talked about. One of those many examples, in a way, really reflecting the consuming habits change here in this country. China's changing so fast, Professor Liu. You know better than
exactly.
I do.
Yeah, actually 10 years ago, I was about to do this, and then, I eventually gave it up, so I sold my share of the farm. So it's quite a contrast of the experience. But yes, I think basically, the Chinese middle class is rising to from living standard now to quality of life. So which is really a big transformation. And by quality of life, on one side it means to enrich their mind through education, through entertainment, and the other is to build their body, for sports, health, and then also for the quality of food. So I think the part of it goes to this one. So and now they are even expanding their soul in caring about the environment through DIY, through volunteer type of work, so that they can really contribute more to what they believe in. So this is something that is really inspiring.
It's very interesting to think about this. I mean, the sheer size of the Chinese market is really going to make a huge statement for where the world is going. And when you say their consuming habits is more about self-related now. It's not just about I carry a bag and I let you to see what kind of bag that I have, or a coat, or a shirt, or a glasses, but a watch, but rather what is going to be the potential me, and what is going to be the value system that I reflect in the way that I consume. This means when you talk to your customers, and you yourself is actually a doctor in agricultural studies, how do you see this change? What does it mean?
When our consumers at the beginning, they were talking with you about, how this farm can be sustainable. Like mostly they will ask about, like at the beginning they will ask about how in economic part, how this system can be sustainable. But later they will also ask about how you deal with the pest control, or how you deal with the fertilizer. And also they want to take their kids to come to the farm to be more, to experience, to know where their food come from, how this food produced. And this is a kind of, I think this is not only on the first industry as from agriculture, but also it's kind of the second industry and the third industry.
You become a service industry even,
Yeah.
because you're providing tourism in a way.
Yeah.
You're providing a lifestyle business to people.
Yeah, and also the consumers, I think they are changing their mind to be more conscious consumption, because they know actually the money where they goes is actually the kind of voting. So where the money goes, they vote for. If you pay to buy only the kind of cheap food, it means you give farmer less money. You pay less money to farmers. But now they are not only care about the healthy part of food, but also care about like social justice
and also social justice.
Fair,
so actually this multi-purpose consumption that we are talking about here, Professor Liu.
Well, I think now primarily they have more confidence in themselves. Ostentatious consumption is really to show under scarcity. I think number one, they have more disposable income. Number two, they are more educated. Number three, they have access to a whole variety of stuff. So you can have a Mercedes, I can have a BMW, so what's the big deal?
And I would probably just ride the shared bicycles.
Exactly. So, and then, particularly when China is getting more globalized, and also all the custom tariffs are being substantially reduced, so at any time you can get it, so you do not have the sense of anxiety. I must have it, I must show to everybody. So, and then, from confidence you go to sophistication. So, you have more way of expressing yourself instead of just to show in material. So you show that how educated you are. You show that how you can make a special humor even on the WeChat. So that's something that you earn more of respect than envy. So that's.
But it is a very encouraging sign. But at the same time, we all know, Ms. Shi, these days China is talking about supply side economic reform, meaning the supply side of the market cannot meet the speed of change when it comes to demand side. And that's exactly what we're talking about here. The consuming habit has been changing, and the businesses are not fast catching up with the changing of the consuming habits. So here is the thing, what is lacking in this whole chain of whether production, thinking, business models, and other factors, because you've been working on this for 10 years, so probably you know better than most of us. What is lacking? Why there's such a slow change toward where the demands are?
I think this is especially in agriculture industry.
Tell us more.
Because you can see in our industry, it's not very attractive for young people to come in working in our industry. And also,
actually, I was surprised 10 years ago about your choice.
Yeah, it seems there are more and more young people coming, but it's still not be the especially for like in Beijing, many university students, they will not choose agriculture as their first choice. And also we noticed from our supply side, we have many farmers, but the quality of the food, how can we build the trust, and also how we deliver the information to the consumers, because now consumers they are willing to pay more, but they don't know if this is the quality they want to buy.
That's very true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, well, from supplier side, as a marketing professor, I always say there are three levels. Number one, you satisfy existing demand.
Okay.
Number two, you are able to anticipate what they can change tomorrow. So and number three is that you are able to lead their demand. So by creating value, by showing a new lifestyle, that actually what you have been doing is really to lead the demand. You already reached on the highest level of supplier side. Actually,
But the others are not necessarily catching up. There are some, but not necessarily that much.
That's right. But of course, from the consumption pattern, you have innovators and you have laggards. So as long as you are able to catch the middle class or upper middle class, innovators, so the laggards will eventually follow. So therefore, you make a change in the entire consumption paradigm.
Talking about the entire consumption paradigm, China is really such a big economy in the world, and it's gradually becoming a consumption-driven economy as consumers are becoming more selective about where they spend their money. From 2005 to 2010, personal consumption contributed 32% of GDP growth. And 5 years later, the number rose to 41%. The country's millennials are increasingly passionate for buying experiences, for traveling, private lessons, dining, and other high-quality services, seeking a more balanced life where health, family, and experiences take priorities. As you mentioned, all of you, that it is because people are getting more confident and people already have their basic needs met beautifully. They want something more. Something not just to show to the others, but something to enrich their heart and their experiences. Having said that though, how many of them are like this? I mean, are we sitting here in the beautiful studio in Beijing talking about a small proportion of the Chinese population, while the rest of the Chinese population are probably still struggling to be where the middle class is? So are we talking about something, a small percentage, or are we talking about something very likely to become such an explosion of consumers? Professor Liu, I let you go first.
Well, most of the forecasts would say, okay, right now it's between 5% to 16%, depending on different definition of what is the middle class, and by 2020, so we are about to have from 16% to 32%. So this is something that people anticipate, the rising middle class. And plus, there are also interesting phenomena. There is quite a generation gap. So even if you are among the middle class, because of the different age group, your consumption pattern is totally different.
Because you grow up differently.
Because for our generation, yes, we have more disposable income and we have higher education, but we still remember what we had 30 years ago.
And therefore you're changing habits?
So we still are very conservative and we want to save more. But for younger generation, millennials like my son, he has double insurance. He has his own social insurance and he has insurance from me. Okay. So therefore, he can really enjoy.
This is an interesting question. We only have 2 minutes left, but I do need to ask that question. That is, are we talking about a very privileged generation? I mean, this generation is the only child of the family. They got the two parents and grandparents, many of them, to take care of them. Therefore, they could take a big step in their consumption habit. But what about in the future? Can they still continue to do that? Is this going to be sustainable? Ms. Shi.
I think for our generation, we want to have more diversified culture and choice. So I think in the future, this kind of middle class will still keep on this kind of consumption way. And also I noticed there are some numbers are talking about right now in China about 23% of middle class people. That's kind of the whole population of American country. So I think this kind of population will drive China economy to a different way, different period.